Silakan.
Thank you, Shakira. Distinguished KMF speakers, all members of Khazanah National Berhad, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to the Khazanah Megatrends Forum 2023. Thank you. Now, it is with great pleasure to welcome you to the Khazanah Megatrends Forum, a long tradition of Khazanah since 2005. Now, 18 years ago, Khazanah held a significant and comprehensive internal leadership meeting to discuss strategy for the upcoming planning cycle. Now, this recurring meeting expanded to encompass so many components, including external speakers and structured discussions, covering important global trends, touching the corporate sector, social sector, policy development, and many more. Now, it became too valuable not to be shared with appropriate stakeholders, with Malaysia's various communities. And so, the Khazanah Megatrends Forum was born, encompassing innovative and creative discussions about the forces shaping our world, and especially their impact on Malaysia. Now, after a pause due to COVID in 2020, we resumed KMF fully virtual in 2021, and have since decided to adopt a hybrid format for KMF, which was well received last year. So for those of you joining online, a warm welcome to you too. Now, although a hybrid format, I'm pleased to say that for this year, we've received the highest number of physical attendance. Now, it does tell me that there is a strong momentum and engagement from our community wanting to gain knowledge and wanting to participate in advancing Malaysia. Over the years, KMF has discussed many pertinent topics: the complexities of development, artificial intelligence, our collective brain, efficiency, growth, geography, paradox, and so on. And in thinking about our themes for KMF, we do try to reflect on several things. Now, first, what's going on in the world? You know, it is, after all, a Megatrends Forum. And second, a sentiment of what's next and what is to come. We've done our best to make our way through a pandemic, geopolitical tensions, war in Ukraine, rising inflation, and a weakened global economy, and more. And I think we are starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel, or at least some optimism after some very difficult times. And as such, our theme will be our next episode. So I noticed some of you rap fans perhaps recognize the intro song just now. And yes, the theme does borrow the Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg's title song, next episode. Thank you. But only the title, yeah? So I believe that our next episode theme is our conviction that we are now ready to move forward into whatever comes next. But at the same time, we must do it with purpose, with intention, and most of all, we must do it together. And hence, the second part of our theme, orchestrating a development bargain for sustainable growth. I'll do my best to summarize it here, but I also strongly encourage all of you to read the concept paper in its entirety, which you'll find the paper in our forum website. Professor Stefan Durkon. For the takeoff through growth and development, elites with power and influence in poor countries must be committed to growth and development and be willing to make economic and political choices that reflect this. Now, such elite bargain is a development bargain. But instead of me speaking to all of you about this particular topic, idea, I'm fortunate to have someone far more qualified to share with all of you, and that is Professor Dirkon himself, who will give the keynote address. So instead, perhaps I'll just share some reflections I had after reading Professor Dirkon's book, which, in my view, is one of the most important books on economic development in recent history. Now, the first is that it is impossible to separate economics and politics anywhere in the world. After all, every policy has trade-offs that may benefit one group at the expense of another. Now, balancing those benefits and expense require both economic and political perspectives. We may often hear statements like, this economic policy is perfect, but you know lah, politics gets in the way. Right? But the reality is that economics and politics go hand in hand. In fact, when Adam Smith, often thought as the father of economics, or at least Western classical economics, when he wrote The Wealth of the Nations, economics at the time was called political economy. Now, the second reflection I have is on this idea that a development bargain is, in fact, a bargain. It means that various groups need to come to some agreement to move forward in some agreed-upon direction. So earlier this year, at the AVPN Global Conference, which was co-held with the Khazanah Forum, I made a point that the issues we collectively face are all incredibly complex. No single entity, however powerful or influential, can tackle issues by itself. It requires engaging a whole host of stakeholders, a bargain of sorts, be it local communities, government, or NGOs. Just imagine trying to tackle something like climate change, or food security, or economic development, but only with, say, just public policy, or just invested capital. It's just not possible. And as such, with stakeholders to make meaningful progress on complex issues. So taken together, this thesis of interconnectedness of politics and economics, as well as the need for stakeholders to form coalitions towards development, now it's a powerful one. But of course, choosing development over other objectives, such as, say, military might or extraction of resources, is still necessary. And that is where the need to orchestrate a development bargain towards sustainable growth comes in. Now, growth is a choice. And within that, sustainable growth is also a choice. Now, how do we orchestrate that? This, I think, will form the basis of much of our discussions over these 2 days. So, ladies and gentlemen, Khazanah's investment strategy is shaped by our overall strategic goal of advancing Malaysia. And in executing on this strategy, we must, among others, ensure value creation in our companies where we have large shareholdings, invest strategically in solving issues that Malaysia faces via our impact fund, or Dana Impact. Returns from our global investment operations, and to deliver societal value to our ultimate stakeholders, the Malaysian rakyat. In everything we do, we recognize that we are part of a broader ecosystem, and we are connected with others just as they are connected with us. We must work with private companies, with government, regulators, fund managers, foundations, NGOs, academia, and much more. And to that end, while the government-owned entities are typically criticized for crowding out private players, we believe that we also have a responsibility to crowd in private players and other stakeholders. Now take, for instance, our Dana Impact, our 6 billion allocation to increase Malaysia's competitiveness and build national resilience. One of the programs launched under Dana Impact is the Future Malaysia program, which seeks to invest in the Malaysian venture ecosystem. But it's actually borderline absurd to assume that Khazanah is to invest. And as such, we work with partners such as 500 Global, Gobi, Antler, Plug and Play, Petronas Ventures, and more to ensure that we take a holistic approach in the value chain. Now, for instance, we recently launched our Khazanah Impact Innovation Challenge, or KIIC, with the theme of tackling the climate challenge for Malaysia's food security, to discover and support new businesses in solving a key challenge for Malaysia. Now, 15 companies have been identified to go through the accelerator run by Plug and Play, which will kick off next week. Even the way in which we try to generate knowledge and ideas requires a whole host of contributors. Naturally, we have the Khazanah Research Institute, which conducts digital inclusion, wages, and more. But knowledge generation must also transcend silos and borders. And last month, together with the World Economic Forum and Accenture, Khazanah and KRI launched a report entitled Mobilizing Investments for Clean Energy in Malaysia. So even the reason we're all here, the Khazanah Megatrends Forum, is multi-stakeholder. We don't just invite corporate folks, so we don't just invite policymakers or academics alone, or even civil society leaders. We want to bring everyone together. And indeed, especially with a more virtual platform, more accessible and inclusive. To deliberate on this year's theme, we have 29 distinguished speakers from a diverse spectrum of countries and backgrounds, with amazing stories, ideas, and insights to share. And as always, we try to be as holistic as possible in unpacking the theme. Our 4 established panel discussions will examine the theme from the perspectives of markets, firms, society, and people, supplemented by many other sessions. Is by Professor Stefan Durkon, author and Professor of Economic Policy, Blavatnik School of Government, University of Oxford. We will also be distributing Professor Durkon's books on a first-come, first-served basis for KMF participants. Now, it is a hugely insightful read, and I mean no hyperbole when, as I said earlier, it is one of the most important books on economic development in recent history. So please grab a copy. And we have 2 feature addresses by eminent individuals. Dr. Eric Lee, founder, Chengwei Capital and Guancha.cn. Senior partner and global leader of Quantum Black Labs, McKinsey & Company. And we have 2 special sessions, Malaysiana, specifically about initiatives by inspiring Malaysians, which should make us all proud. An unusual, fascinating innovation without borders, with a focus on science, technology, and sustainability. And we have altogether 3 fireside chats, and they are First, a discussion about corporate innovation, which I'm sure will be lively and engaging by C.Y. Lim, Group CEO of Yinson Holdings. A second, a conversation with Datuk Johan Merican, Secretary General of the Treasury, Dr. Nungsari Ahmad Radi, Committee Member, Advisory Committee to the Finance Minister, and Puan Nurul Izzah Anwar, the co-head announced by the Prime Minister and what it means for all of us. Now, third, a discussion on talent and how to find them by Magnus Grimmelin, the founder and CEO of Antler. And I'm pleased to say that for those of you who are attending, the event is always something specifically Malaysian, a celebration of our arts, culture, and heritage, and a popular counterbalance to our many economics and business discussions. And finally, as part of our corporate sustainability targets, we will also be measuring the sustainability performance of this year's forum in accordance with ISO standards and other related metrics. So some of the areas that we will assess includes GHG emissions, energy consumption, and waste management. And I believe all of you who are present here, you would have been asked for your transport details when you were RSVP'd for KMF. And I highly encourage you to fill out the form if you haven't done so, as the data will help us calculate our emissions for this forum. So ladies and gentlemen, to close, I really hope that you have an engaging, stimulating, and productive time over the next 2 days, and you'll find this KMF insightful, pertinent, and hopefully inspiring. So welcome once again to KMF 2023, and I would like to once again thank each and every one of you for being here with us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Datuk Feisal. Ladies and gentlemen, starting our day strong, we now move on to our keynote address entitled Malaysia's Development Bargain, Can it be renewed or enhanced? Honored to have with us to welcome Professor Stefan Derkon, a renowned author and Professor of Economic Policy, Blavatnik School of Government at the University of Oxford. And to introduce him, please welcome Tan Siawan, Director of Research at Khazanah. Over to you.